Oh, man. You know, sometimes I don't even watch ESPN, but sometimes I learn a lot from the geniuses at ESPN.
Do you now?
Oh, my gosh. Jemele Hill. Can you tell me a little bit about Jemele Hill?
Well, she was actually so woke. She used to do Sports Center, a version of it, and all she would they had a problem with her never talking about sports.
Never. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Yeah, there was an issue with Jemele where she would do Sports Center, but the center of the Sports Center show was never sports.
It was never sports.
No, it was just always racism.
So it would be like hiring me.
I'd much rather hear your commentary about sports, frankly. It would be much more entertaining.
Okay, so
then she's no longer at ESPN. You should know that. She was let go. She was first pushed out of Sports Center and onto something called The Undefeated, which is basically ESPN's effort to tell you everything in sports is racist. The entire website dedicated to how racist sports are, which is a great. I mean, wow! I can't get enough of it.
Can I tell you something? I'm opening up a website this week. I'm working on it right now to say how evil talk radio is.
Oh, cool!
And how bad talk radio is, and how it's just poison just being dumped into the system.
I have terrible news for you. There's about 50 of those sites that already exist.
Yeah, I know, but I thought it would have more credibility if it was coming from me.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You know what I mean?
And then she left that, again, when I say left, pushed out, went to The Atlantic. That's where she is now. The place that fired Kevin Williamson because of one comedy made 15 years ago.
Yeah,
that was so now she's there and writing about her brilliant analysis of the United States there.
Okay, so she tweeted over the weekend, been reading Isabel Wickerson's new book, Cast. Oof. And if you were of the opinion the United States wasn't nearly as bad as Nazi Germany, how wrong you are. I encourage you to read this masterpiece. Well, I gotta tell you, just from that tweet, I'm thinking, wow, we are as bad? No, we're worse than Nazi Germany because we apparently were the model for Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany looked to us and thought, wow, they're really bad. Can we tone that down just a bit and bring some of that lovin' over our way? And according to Jemele, that's exactly what they did. Now, she's not as wrong as she usually is, but as always, she misses, I don't know, some might call it a subtle nuance. I call it a huge difference. Okay, so let me just set the record straight for Jemele, who I'm sure you are a deep scholar on the issue. The Nazis, you're right, did learn from America. They did. Except they didn't learn from America like the founding documents or anything like that. In fact, they hated the founding documents. But they did learn a lot from, let's just say race standards. They got that from the progressives, the Southern Democrats, and the Klan. Now, I don't know if you know this, but that's not the founding documents. None of those things have anything to do with the founding documents, have nothing to do with our Constitution or anything that anybody of any common sense would say is good. So they got their marriage laws. Did you know that? I mean, you probably didn't know this, Jemele, but we didn't have marriage laws. There was no, George Washington didn't have a marriage license. He just got married. Thomas Jefferson, in fact, Abraham Lincoln, he didn't go down, to the state office to get a blood test and to make sure that he could get married. No, he didn't have one. You know when we started doing that? In the progressive era, when they wanted to make sure that not one drop of Negro blood was being spread anywhere to anybody of any other race. Got to keep the race pure. By the way, that was Margaret Sanger and her progressive friends. You see, they did learn a lot about, not one drop of blood from the Klan, the Southern Democrats, and the progressives in America.
Black lives didn't matter all that much to Margaret Sanger.
No. They got a lot of their weeding out of imbeciles from American progressives as well. They learned a lot on eugenics and sterilization. Did you know that we led the way on that? Yeah. It was during the progressive era when the progressive Democrats under Wilson decided, you know what, we should start sterilizing people who are just not very smart. Yeah, so they got that. In fact, a lot of the Nuremberg laws were based on Southern Democrat race laws, and the Nuremberg laws were based a lot on Woodrow Wilson and his progressive laws. Isn't that great? Isn't that crazy how it works? In fact, Goebbels, he learned a lot from an American as well. Not America, but an American. In fact, he said he learned propaganda from Bernays. The guy who worked for Woodrow Wilson. Isn't that nuts? Hitler, in fact, watched FDR and thought for a while he was a pretty good guy. He said, quote, "He's a National Socialist just like us." Isn't that great? See, what you fail to understand, Jemele, is not all white people are bad. Not all white people,
point of personal privilege?
Yes.
Yes, all white people are bad. They are.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
No.
I've been watching the news. They're pretty bad.
No. So not all white people are bad. People who have made mistakes should be granted forgiveness if they ask for forgiveness because, it's your responsibility to give it if asked, but I don't really care if you give it to me because I get forgiveness from God. And he gives that to me weirdly, personally. He gives that to me strangely as an individual, not as a collective. Isn't that weird, Jemele? Another thing, we have different from the Nazis is we believe in the individual. They believe in the collective, which is weird because I bet you believe in the collective more than the individual. Don't you, Jemele? Okay, so I just wanted to point that out that, what you need to understand, the Nazis were not watching America and reading our founding documents as a whole. They didn't get any of these things from our founders. They got them from the refounders. The people still fighting the Civil War, the progressives, the Democrats. Oh, by the way, the Klan and Democrat. I mean, it's redundant to say the Democrats and the Klan because they were an arm of the Democrats. So, I hate to go too deep for you, in this master class. But what's really crazy is apparently some Americans learned something from the Nazis too. Yeah. Apparently, some Democrats, some progressives decided, hey, what did they do with their gun control laws? Could we adopt any of those things? In Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, you have to carry identification card based on formats from the Nazi weapons law. Isn't that weird? Nazi-based laws here in America. That's weird. I mean, because didn't we lose a lot of people fighting the Nazis, wanting to wipe them out? Yeah. And then we get their gun control laws from them? Isn't that strange? The Gun Control Act of 1968, a new approach, if you will, to gun control. It replaced the Federal Firearms Act of June 30, 1938, which was based on the federal power to regulate interstate commerce. See, that was a commerce law. That was the way for the government to grow even more powerful, just like the Nazis did. And 1938, who was president? Oh, that was FDR. That was a progressive hero of the left. That's right. Yeah. So only dealers could ship firearms across state lines. Normally, before 1938, you could just get them shipped from dealers. But they changed that. Once FDR got a taste of this National Socialism stuff. So it was really great that we could take some of these things that Nazis did, and like they strangled the people. Because here's what happened in the 1920s. They said, "Hey, we need to register all these people who have guns, and we'll never use it for anything else. You can trust us." Well, little did they know that the government would fall into the hands of madmen. Yeah. I'm sorry, not fall into the hands. They were democratically elected officials. Like you love so much, democratically elected Nazis. They took over. And then they were like, oh my gosh, we have these communists, we have these people in the streets, like the Tea Party, like these communists, and we've got to protect the German people. And if we can just save one life. And so when they took over in March 1933, the Nazis had access to that vault that will never, ever, ever, ever be used against Germans. You know what I mean? And that list is what they went to use to seize private firearms, because people weren't reliable, because some people weren't for the Nazis. So they knew who owned the firearms, and the Nazis just revoked the, ownership permits or declined to renew them, for the people who weren't for the Nazis, which is, fantastic. Because then in 1938, they, barred Jews from businesses involving any firearms, and then it was only a day after the Nazi terror squads savaged the Jews in the synagogues and the Jewish businesses. And then new regulations on the new weapon law barred Jews from owning any weapons, even clubs or knives. So I am so pleased, Jemele, that you brought this up so we could educate America on who the Nazis got all of these ideas from. Because it wasn't from our founders, who you just seem to hate. And I understand if you think that the founders were responsible for arming the Nazis with a whole bunch of bad ideas. But no, it wasn't. It was the Democrats, redundantly, the Klan, and redundantly again, the progressives. That's who they watched, Jemele. But thanks so much for chiming in. As they say in the South, why, bless your heart.